The colonies were a melting pot, but not everyone was equal. At the top were the gentry, wealthy landowners and merchants. Below them were farmers, shopkeepers and artisans. At the bottom were enslaved Africans, denied basic freedoms. The colonies offered a chance for reinvention. Indentured servants could gain land and climb the social ladder. The rigid social structure of Europe was challenged in this new land. Religion was the bedrock of colonial life. The Puritans sought to create a godly society. The middle colonies saw a mix of faiths. In the South, the Anglican Church held sway. The Great Awakening shook the religious landscape. Passionate preachers ignited fervor, challenging authority. New denominations gained followers. Religious independence led to political questioning. The colonial economy was deeply intertwined with the land. Agriculture formed the backbone, with tobacco, rice, and indigo dominating southern plantations. In the north, small farms produced crops for local consumption. Trade flourished, connecting the colonies to the wider Atlantic world. The triangular trade, a complex system of exchange, saw raw materials flow from the colonies to Europe, manufactured goods from Europe to Africa, and enslaved Africans from Africa to the Americas. This intricate web of trade brought both prosperity and exploitation. Merchants amassed fortunes, their ships laden with valuable cargo. Shipbuilding became a major industry, providing employment and stimulating economic growth. However, the dark side of this prosperity was the human cost. The triangular trade thrived on the forced labor of enslaved Africans, their lives traded for profit. The economic success of the colonies, fueled by agriculture, trade, and sadly, slavery, had a profound impact on colonial identity. As the colonies prospered, a sense of self-sufficiency grew. The colonists, no longer solely reliant on England for their livelihoods, began to see themselves as distinct. This economic independence, built on the backs of enslaved Africans, would eventually lead to demands for political autonomy. Slavery, a dark stain on the colonial fabric, cast a long shadow over American history. From the arrival of the first Africans in Virginia in 1619, the institution of slavery became deeply entrenched, particularly in the southern colonies. Enslaved Africans, treated as property, endured unimaginable hardships, forced labor, brutal treatment, and the denial of their basic human rights. Their labor, the backbone of the Southern economy, enriched white planters while condemning generations to a life of servitude. Despite the horrors they faced, enslaved Africans found ways to preserve their culture and humanity. Music, dance, and storytelling became forms of resistance, preserving traditions and offering solace in the face of adversity. African cultural influences seeped into colonial society, shaping music, food, and language. The resilience of enslaved Africans, their ability to maintain their cultural identity in the face of unimaginable cruelty, stands as a testament to the indomitable human spirit. However, the institution of slavery would leave an enduring legacy of racism and inequality. The belief in white supremacy, used to justify the enslavement of Africans, would continue to plague American society long after slavery was abolished. The fight for racial equality, sparked by the courage and resilience of enslaved Africans, continues to this day. Section 5. Hearth and Home. Family in the Colonies. Family life in colonial America varied greatly by region and social standing. In New England, large families were the norm, with children contributing to the household economy from a young age. The Puritan emphasis on piety and hard work shaped family dynamics. In the southern colonies, where plantations dominated the landscape, family life for enslaved Africans was shattered by forced separation and the denial of basic rights. Women in colonial society, regardless of social standing, faced limited opportunities. Their lives revolved around domestic duties, child-rearing, cooking, and managing the household. Education, for the most part, was reserved for boys. However, women played a vital role in maintaining the social fabric of their communities. They were the keepers of knowledge, passing down traditions and providing essential skills to the next generation. The family unit, despite its limitations, served as a cornerstone of colonial society. It was within the family that values were instilled, skills were taught, and traditions were preserved. The challenges and triumphs of family life, shaped by the realities of colonial existence, helped forge a sense of shared experience and identity among colonists. Section 6. The Pursuit of Knowledge. Education in colonial America was far from universal. In New England, where the Puritan emphasis on literacy fueled the establishment of schools, children learned to read and write primarily from the Bible. The first colleges, Harvard and William and Mary, were founded to train ministers. In the southern colonies, education was largely a private affair, reserved for the planter class. The Enlightenment, a European intellectual movement that emphasized reason and individual liberty, began to influence colonial thinkers. Benjamin Franklin, a polymath and embodiment of the Enlightenment spirit, embraced scientific inquiry, invention, and public service. Newspapers and pamphlets carrying news and ideas circulated widely, fostering debate and discussion. The spread of Enlightenment ideas, coupled with the growth of literacy and education, had a profound impact on colonial thinking. The colonists, exposed to new ideas about reason, liberty, and self-government, began to question the legitimacy of British rule. The seeds of revolution were sown in the fertile ground of intellectual curiosity and a growing sense of colonial identity. Section 7. Seeds of Self-Governance. From the very beginning, the colonists displayed a remarkable aptitude for self-governance. The Mayflower Compact, signed by the Pilgrims in 1620, established a framework for self-rule based on the consent of the governed. Town meetings in New England, where citizens gathered to discuss and decide local affairs, became a cornerstone of colonial democracy. As the colonies matured, so too did their systems of governance. Colonial assemblies elected by property-owning men gained power and influence. These assemblies, often at odds with royal governors appointed by the crown, became training grounds for future leaders. The colonists, accustomed to managing their own affairs, grew increasingly resistant to interference from London. The development of self-governing institutions, rooted in the principles of consent and representation, fostered a sense of colonial identity distinct from that of England. The colonists, accustomed to a degree of autonomy, began to see themselves as capable of governing themselves. This growing sense of self-reliance, nurtured in the cradle of colonial self-governance, would eventually lead to demands for independence. Section 8. The Road to Revolution. By the mid-18th century, a confluence of factors set the stage for revolution. The colonies, economically prosperous and accustomed to self-governance, chafed under British policies that they perceived as increasingly intrusive. The French and Indian War, while a British victory, left England deeply in debt and determined to exert greater control over its American colonies. New taxes like the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts were met with resistance, fueling tensions between the colonies and the mother country. The cry of "no taxation without representation" resonated throughout the colonies. The colonists, accustomed to managing their own affairs, bristled at the imposition of taxes without their consent. The Boston Massacre, a clash between British troops and colonists, further inflamed tensions. The Boston Tea Party, a daring act of defiance, demonstrated the colonists' willingness to challenge British authority. The road to revolution was paved with a growing sense of grievance and a belief that the colonies were capable of governing themselves. The colonists, shaped by their experiences in the New World, had developed a distinct identity, one that valued liberty, self-reliance, and representative government. The stage was set for a momentous clash that would determine the fate of a continent. Section 9. A Tapestry of Cultures. Colonial America, a melting pot of nationalities and traditions, witnessed the emergence of a new cultural identity. English, French, Dutch, German, and African influences intermingled, creating a vibrant and dynamic society. From the architecture of Boston to the foodways of Charleston, the colonies bore the imprint of their diverse heritage. Religious diversity, while sometimes a source of tension, also contributed to the evolving colonial identity. The tolerance and pluralism that characterized some colonies, particularly in the Middle region, stood in stark contrast to the religious uniformity of Europe. This spirit of religious freedom, a cornerstone of American identity, would later be enshrined in the Bill of Rights. Colonial America, a land of opportunity and exploitation, of piety and pragmatism, laid the foundation for a new nation. The colonists, shaped by their experiences in the New World, forged a distinct identity, one that valued liberty, self-reliance, and representative government. The seeds of revolution, sown in the fertile ground of colonial America, would eventually blossom into a nation founded on the principles of freedom and equality.